Thank you all so very much for attending this webinar today. You are joined by, the College of Law Australia and myself, Billy Koutsis. I'm the Engagement and Sponsorship Manager for the College of Law, alongside my colleague, Lee Horden, Assistant Director for PLT and lecturer as well.
Good morning. Oh, actually, good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, the day's going very quickly. But no, thank you all for joining us for our Practical Legal Training Power Hour, an hour where we dedicate this to everything PLT and to all those questions that you must have, because there's 1,000 questions around PLT. And today we want to walk away with you with hopefully 0 questions. I know there might always be those questions that bubble up afterwards, but we can at least address most of the main big ideas and some of those nitty-gritties as well. So yeah, look, a big thank you all for joining once again, whether you are watching live or watching a recording. It's great to have you all on board either way. So thank you all for registering. So the practical legal training, the flex factor, you might see that a bit often on our materials when viewing more information around the PLT. And flex being short for flexible and flexibility is a really big part around the College of Law's PLT program, one where you can kind of craft a PLT that works best for you. But we'll certainly get into that very soon and more as well. So firstly, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and also to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So flexible, mentioning that word yet again, you might see that pop up a few times. It's really, when you talk about 3 main aspects that the College of Law's PLT program reflects. The flexibility is one of those really key factors. And, when you talk about the differing schedules that everyone leads in this day and age, none of our lives look the same in a lot of ways, really. So you need to be able to pick what works for you and also have the ability to have different options catered for you. So, with us, a big part of that is being able to mix, match, and make PLT your own, as the slide suggests. But before I mention the task-based nature, let's take a big step back for a moment. What is PLT? Why are we all here? And it's always important to go back to that, because what we notice commonly is a lot of people may get to their penultimate, to their last year, and they may realize that they don't know all that much around PLT. That's after they find out that it's mandatory, and then they start to chuck a Kevin McAllister from Home Alone like that and, freak out and think, oh no, I have to undergo more study. Well, look, here's the deal. The PLT isn't as scary as you may think. In fact, it really ends up being one of the most talked about and one of the most fun parts of your law journey. So the PLT, or Practical Legal Training course, or Graduate Diploma in Legal Practice, as the certificate that you will receive by the end of it suggests, is your chance to really put theory into practice. It is a mandatory part of the journey. You do have to complete it. And in university right now, you are learning all the theory, all the information and the knowledge, and that's great. Maybe your heads are about to explode with that, but it's still great that you're learning all the theory and info that you need, and you really do need it. But you need to be able to put that into practice, and you need to be able to do that so you can actually become a lawyer and do and perform the duties and tasks that a lawyer does. That's exactly when you come to us for your PLT or to a PLT provider of your choice, and we equip you with the skills necessary for you to be able to perform those tasks and then bring value to your clients once you yourself are an admitted member of the profession. So hopefully that background makes sense around the PLT. So now the task-based nature might make a bit more sense, because you are completing real-world tasks on simulated cases. And that's super important because it feels more real. And when it feels more real is where it really feels more concrete for you, and it feels more, okay, now this is what I'll be doing by the time I'm in a position myself, whatever that may be and wherever that may be. So the flexibility, the task-based nature of the College of Law's PLT program is super important, but also support. And this is coming from, someone like myself who has a background in education, is support is everything. Everything to those that teach, everything to those that learn, and everything for you, looking for that support so that you feel like you have the scaffolding in place to be able to learn the ropes, practice in a safe environment, and have access to a variety of people that are equipped to help you feel equipped and be equipped. So you have access to a facilitator, a mentor, and a career coach amongst other people here at the College of Law. But I don't want to give too much away yet. This is just a little bit of an introduction, and we'll definitely go into more details soon enough. So what does your path to practice look like? It's always helpful to just lay out the path. And it's always, and look, if you're here, whether you're in your penultimate last year or even in your second, third year, even in your first year, I commend you for being here and for wanting to learn more about the PLT regardless, because it only means that you're more equipped to plan ahead. And planning ahead is important, and not that everything maybe goes to plan exactly 100%, but the best thing you can do is be prepared either way. So what does the path look like? So you're currently sitting in the sky blue bubble at the top of your screen with your academic law degrees. And so by the time you finish, then you move on to complete your practical legal training. So again, you're learning all the theory and information, all the knowledge that you need at the moment in your law degrees, and then you put it into practice by the time your PLT rolls around. And between your PLT and your admission, there's a couple of steps at that as well, where you'll be able to apply for admission as well with your local admitting authority in the state that you're planning to practice in. So if you are in New South Wales, it would be with the Legal Profession Admission Board. If you're in Victoria, it would be the Victorian Legal Admissions Board, or VLAB. If you're in Western Australia, it would be the Legal Practice Board, and so forth. So yeah, you'll need to make sure you know who your local authority is of the state that you're wishing to practice in, and then you would be able to attend your admission ceremony. But who better to hear that from than Lee, who has gone through this herself? Lee, did you want to chime in with some insight there and experience?
So your admission ceremony is one of the best days of your life, is how I'm going to start. You would have done your law degree. It would have taken you many years. You have completed PLT, and your admission ceremony is basically the time where you can celebrate those wins. It all comes together for you. You get the chance to appear in court in front of your family and friends and sign the roll of the court where you want to practice. I signed in New South Wales in Sydney, but of course, the joy these days is once you're admitted in one state, you can practice in every state.
Awesome, thank you. That's a super exciting part of the journey, I'd imagine.
It's the best part.
That's what we want to hear. So the PLT, what are the pillars that make it up? Well, there's three aspects to that. The coursework, which Lee will talk about in a very short moment. Then there's the work experience, which I'm happy to go into a little bit of detail about. And then the continuing professional education component as well, which Lee will talk about. And we'll obviously discuss a few more aspects around that as well. But as a very brief introduction, your coursework component is where you will be completing, 10 interactive modules, learning from, leaders in the space in your, who are delivering the course, and people that have experience and people that are admitted, where you're learning those, legal skills, whether it be, business-wise, tech skills and general legal skills, and especially in the digital age that we're in as well, which Lee will talk about a little bit later too. And with your work experience, you'll be able to learn from legal leaders outside of the college and in actual environments and real environments where, you'll be able to join a workplace that you are able to join, or one that you like, and you're applying your knowledge in those real life scenarios, which is always an exciting part of the journey. And with the CPE, or continuing professional education component, you will be able to attend interactive workshops and complete, 5 course subjects and take the 2 electives as well. But without further ado, I'll hand it off to Lee. And before I do that, I'll just enable that option for you to be able to click through.
Fantastic. Thank
Right.
you, Billy.
No worries.
So I'm going to talk about coursework, and I'm just seeing if it's going to click through for me.
Yep, hopefully should.
Not clicking through.
Oh, that's okay.
You can click it for me, Billy. That would be
Yeah,
great.
no worries.
I'll try again in a second. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you do PLT, when you start PLT, you will understand that it is absolutely nothing like what you've done before in your law degree at university. It is the complete opposite to university, in my opinion. So university, obviously, you've got very large lecture theatres, got a lot of students. You don't get a lot of contact with your lecturer one-on-one. You may find it difficult to, ask your lecturer questions. You may write 5,000 word report and maybe get 2 comments back on it. And it's all about the theory of law. Now, PLT is the complete opposite. We're talking small groups of students, huge amount of contact with your lecturer. They are there to answer questions, a large amount of feedback, all personalised to any sort of submissions that you make. And the work itself, which I will talk about later, is practical work. It's how you actually go about being a lawyer, not the theory behind the law. Just see if it'll click for me.
Yeah, I can just confirm if it's working.
It doesn't want to click for me.
Nah, that's okay. Yeah, all good.
So with the subjects themselves that you'll go through with your coursework, now we've got compulsory subjects that everybody has to do, and then elective subjects. Now, some of you might say, well, look, Lee, why do I need to do these compulsory subjects? I may have clerked at, in a civil litigation firm. I may have done property practice and transitions for the last 2 years. Well, my answer to that is, look, no matter which state you're in, the regulator prescribes what they think you need to know before they'll let you go into practice. And these 5 subjects here, these compulsory subjects, lawyer skills, ethics and professional responsibility, civil litigation, property law practice, and commercial and corporate practice, are the minimum requirements. They say if you work through your PLT, you will come out with the knowledge required that an entry-level lawyer should have in order to sort of take those first steps into practice. So these are great subjects, and I'll talk a bit more about them later. But in addition to that, we also want you to be able to do some electives. So we give you a choice of 8 electives, and you get to pick 2 of them. You can pick 2 that interest you. You can pick 2 that you might be working in that particular area. Or, hey, it could be 2 that you've never looked at before, but you go, look, I'm just want to dip my toe in and see whether I do actually like family law, or I do like criminal law, or I may want to work in planning and environment. Just gives you a chance to experience the subjects. But any 2 that you want, you get to pick the 2 that works for you. Can you click for me, Billy?
All right. It should work. Maybe if you try and press enter.
I'll try it now.
Yeah. No luck. Okay, that's fine. I'll help you out. No
So I spoke briefly about how different it is from university, the work that you need to do. And with PLT, we're talking about, like I said, real lawyer tasks. We're drafting contracts. We're looking at special conditions, drafting special conditions, drafting letters of advice that are actually going to address the client's specific circumstances and solve their problem practically. You're actually going to tell them the next steps forward, how they go about, resolving the dispute, or your suggestions with regards to negotiation. You're going to look at interviewing, negotiating, role playing. You're going to do wills and estates, look at commercial leases. It's real work, not essays. You're not going to go out and write 1,000 words on Torrens title and how it's come into effect, or how one legal case may have shaped the legal principles in contract law. This is all about the client walks through the door, they explain their circumstances, and it's you understanding directly how to deal with that and help the client move forward. which again, so obviously, completely different work. So you're going to look at draft contracts. So actually the standard contracts that real lawyers use now in practice. You're going to look at real special conditions and how to modify them for your client. You're going to look at drafting wills if you decide to take that particular elective. Or if you're going to work in the family court or the criminal court, you're going to look at bail applications or acting for a client in a property matter. So real law that actually assists you with being a lawyer. So our program timeline runs roughly like this. Just ignore the weeks below down the bottom for a bit. They can change a little bit depending on whether you do a part-time course or a full-time course or an evening course, but Billy's going to talk about that later. Most of our courses start with this first week of lawyer skills, and then we lead you on into ethics and professional responsibility. You'll cover civil practice litigation, which is all about, say, drafting pleadings, drafting a defense, negotiating or enforcing proceedings. You'll then look at property practice, so buying and selling property, looking at mortgages, looking at leases. Commercial and corporate practice, which looks at buying and selling a business, or perhaps you might look at buying and selling company shares. And then you'll do your electives after that. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about week 1, which is all what we call that skills week. Now, here you're going to do probably about 6 or 7 workshops. Now, these are, again, this is where you get to practice your lawyering skills. We're going to look at ethical decisions, how to actually make an ethical decision as opposed to the ethics behind a decision. You're going to have an opportunity to look at the Australian Solicitor Conduct Rules, the Uniform Law, and actually come to some conclusion about what to do when a client wants you to act in a way that you don't think is ethical or you're not sure whether to do that. You're going to understand and have a really good go at interviewing practice. So you're actually going to understand the fundamentals of interviewing and then actually interviewing somebody, writing down the file notes, seeing if you can get all the facts that you need from that interview in order to solve your client's problem, or at least give them some advice to move forward. Now, you're also going to look at risk management and problem solving, which are very high on a lawyer's priority at the moment. Basically, understanding how to break down the question that the client's asking you and assessing the risk factors for the client and yourself and what you need to do in order to solve their problem and give them a complete answer. We're going to look at advocacy, which is one of my absolute favorites. So there you're actually going to make an appearance in court. It'll be a mock court, but you'll still get a go at it. You'll understand how to make some submissions and draft some submissions in order to represent a client at court. And we're also going to get you to do evidence in chief and cross-examination and, you know, have a real witness in the witness box and have a go. And believe me, it is in my opinion, the best of the workshops out of all of them. It's a lot of fun and the client and students get a lot out of it. And then we're also going to look at negotiation and dispute resolution, which is you, again, put in a real life situation and actually negotiating, trying to get the best outcome for your client, whether it be money, whether it be a solution to their problem that they're having in a dispute, which might not involve money, but overall, a whole week full of workshops with practical skills. You're going to come out of there going, okay, I know how to go and interview a client now, at least that initial interview. I know how to ask the questions. I know how to get the facts I need. And when you finish that, you will go through the rest of the coursework as per that previous timetable, the ethics, civil lit, property, commercial and corporate, and your electives. And these are all done online. So here is where you get to work to your timetable, basically. There is a timetable place, of course, for putting in the work, the submissions, etc. But you can go through and work how you need to at your own pace. And we don't just leave you there once you get into this week 2 where you're working online. This is where I said we're different from uni. This is where your lecturers come in. They offer you support. You can email them, phone them, ring them. I have students that I might speak to every week. Sometimes it's just for a bit of a chat. Most of the time it's they want a question about a certain aspect of things that they need to do. And that's great. It really gives you a chance to, you know, develop a relationship with your lecturer in a way that's going to support you. We also provide what's called huddles here, or subject reviews. So at the end of each unit, again, we'll have a Zoom conference together and you can ask questions. Your lecturer or facilitator will go through that particular subject, point out the things they think you need to focus on, some of the key principles throughout, and what you need to do at the end. We've got quizzes, which also just another way for you to put those skills into practice. Scenarios, and then you can pick the best way to advise your client moving forward. And I think Billy's going to talk about work experience.
You are indeed correct. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lee. Cool. So yes, work experience, one that brings many questions. And just before I do move on, if you do have any questions that are popping up, please drop them in the chat box as well. And we'll definitely dedicate some time towards the end of the session to answer those questions. Cool. So work experience, once again, it's your chance to really jump in the shoes of a lawyer or a solicitor or someone, who may be taking on a very specific role. It could be, as a paralegal, it could be in a community legal center, it could be a clerkship of some sort. It's such a great part of your practice and experience, because you really are putting everything to the test. But as someone who's undertaking work experience, where there's that bit of a safety net, because you've got your all plates on, really, and that's okay. You have to learn and you have to start somewhere. But to be able to do that in a real environment and take away some of that experience from your coursework, to apply some of that information and knowledge that you've attained throughout your years of study, this is where you do it, and it's certainly a fun part of the ride. So how do the options work? Well, I will start from the 75-day option, because the 75-day option is your stock standard option, and it's available in all states. That's, sort of the standard across all jurisdictions. So there's no additional program needed. It's sort of all included in the program. You have to complete 75 days of work experience, and you have to do that during your coursework or after your coursework. Now, when I say you have to, there is something else that you can definitely keep in mind, and it always tends to be a nice little surprise when I tell people, especially those that have been fortunate enough to have work experience before their PLT. So I can jump into that now because I just can't hold it in anymore. So if you have completed up to so if you've completed, work experience within 2 years before starting your PLT, so once again, within 2 years before starting your PLT, if you've completed any work experience days, you can claim up to 60 of the 75 days even before you started with us. And I think that would certainly help bringing extra value to any work experience that you've completed, because that would really take a lot of load off your shoulders. Who wouldn't want to try and make things easy for themselves, right? So if you do, if you are fortunate to have any days completed within those 2 years, you can certainly do that with us by completing just a couple of forms. And then when you have that processed, and by the time you would enroll, then it would already be counted. So that's something that you could certainly think about. But let's say you don't have any work experience and you do have to complete the full 75 days. Most of our students do not indeed struggle when it comes to finding work experience. And that's important in a way of reassuring you as well, because we understand the stress. We understand the stress. We understand that people might be thinking, oh no, 75 days, it seems like years. But it's, it does fly, that's for sure. I think we all know time's flying, but also most of our, I'll be completely frank with you that most of our students do not struggle to find something. And you do have some extra support at the college, which I'll certainly bring up very soon. But one of those little things that you do have is actually access to a jobs board, where you will be able to look for any work experience opportunities as well. So 75 days, that's the standard option. However, let's go back to flexibility at the college. You have flexibility, therefore it means you do have another option. And the other option is 15 days and an additional 6-week online program. Now, I will mention that that extra option applies to all states except WA. But for those that are in WA, your equivalent for this option is 25 days and an extra 5-week program. So just as you know, just if you remember that little difference between WA and the rest of the states and vice versa, then that's pretty much the only difference between those options. But the 75 days still is the same for all. So when we consider the other option, the 15 days for all states except WA, or the 25 days for WA, that is called our clinical experience module option. So as you can see, there is a 60-day difference between the 15 and the 75 days, which is great, especially for those that might be, stressing a little bit and maybe worried that they may not get all those days under their belt. So you have the 15-day option, which works well. Now, the additional 6-week program or 5-week for WA program is it does contain more practical activities. It contains activities that involve reflections as well. So it contains more simulative and more practical tasks that sort of make up for that difference in the actual days that are listed. So when you think about work experience and examples of work experience, one common question I do tend to receive when I, speak with a lot of students is, how do I know it counts as work experience? Well, there's a couple of rules to that. One, if the work that you are completing is legal in nature. And two, if your work is supervised by an admitted member of the profession, then it will count as work experience. And of course, it does have to, adhere with the work experience rules as well. But they're pretty much the two main ticker boxes, if you will, in terms of knowing what will count. And there's a lot of examples, much beyond this slide, that as some examples to give you an idea, summer clerkships, paralegal work, volunteering at community legal centres, government legal departments, assisting in the tribunal, working in-house, assisting the barristers in the chambers. There is a lot of examples. So once again, if you are fortunate enough to have any work experience within those 2 years before starting your PLT, definitely think about claiming those days before you start so that you lift off the load of yourself. And if you are thinking about the clinical experience module option as well, then that's always great to consider and to have up your sleeve as well. And I will pass it on to Lee for the continuing professional education component.
So basically the third part of our course has 3 pillars or 3 parts: coursework, work experience, and what we call CPE or continuing professional education. Just like you have to do when you're a lawyer, you need to do 10 hours of continuing professional education. So this is mandatory if you want to obtain a practicing certificate and you want to hold that each year. You have to declare that you've done an extra 10 hours of study during the year in various practice areas. So it's one of our key pillars here at the college as well, because we say, look, we're training you to be a lawyer, so we think you need to be doing the things that lawyers have to do. This doesn't actually mean, though, that you have to go out and find yourself 10 hours of continuing practical education. We're going to supply it to you. We have a CPE course that covers those 10 hours. Now, we're not going to go back and reiterate and redo things that you've already done during the course or during your life at law school. Our CPE for those 10 hours, it's all about further developing your communication skills, developing a commercial mindset, which most of your clients are very appreciative of if you can understand where they're coming from through a business perspective. We have a module on understanding financial information. So actually being able to read those financial documents, it's not going to make you an accountant, but it will give you enough there to sort of understand the basics of those. We're going to look at cyber risk and legal practice and what you need to be aware of so that you don't get your firm into trouble or, you don't get into trouble. And also various types of current tech in legal practice as well, because you need to be aware of what's going on in the tech environment, because Obviously, these days, there's a lot of AI involved, and this will sort of give you a bit of a heads up about where to look at. And the final 5 units of, that's in the first 5 units. The final 5 units are all about how the college has partnered up with Joseph Designer and Builder program. Now, Joseph is a tech company. It's a startup tech company. And what we get you to do in the final 5 units is basically looking at legal design. We're going to get you to look at sort of a work practice, whatever you choose, not what's relevant to us, but what's relevant to you. And you're going to look at sort of the planning phases through that work practice. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build a bot. You're going to build a bot that's going to take over that practice for you and basically make your life easier. So you get a chance to build what I call a chat bot to whatever sort of workflow that you think will assist you or what you're interested in. And then once you build the bot, you actually can send it off for certification at Joseph Design and Builder. They'll actually test your chatbot or your bot and make sure it works. And then you'll get a certificate to say that you're a Joseph Designer Builder, basically. Again, another great skill to have. Any of the major law firms, even some of the smaller mid-tier law firms these days, they've got their chatbots to help with intake, to help with various processes. If you're aware of how these function and operate, again, it's another tick in your favor when you're trying to get employment with these firms. I'll hand it back to you, Billy.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So that leaves one question. Are we keen to dive in? And, honestly, it's a real question, and it's a question that we hope, has encapsulated the potential excitement now that you have around the PLT. And I say that because I know, aside from the fact that you do have to complete the PLT, that we hope you genuinely feel an excitement for this stage of your journey, because it is a part of the journey where you actually become, like, you feel that feeling of being a lawyer, and that's super important for you to build the confidence that you need, that you will eventually take with you when you are off in the wilderness in the profession. So we hope you are keen to dive in for that matter. And again, when it comes back to PLT, and especially PLT with the college, you certainly have that flexibility that's required for you to be able to, pick your pace. And I'll chat about that very soon either way, but with different options around the study mode and the length of that. It's your chance to be able to learn online, where there will be 5 days of workshops, and there is online available in most states, but I would say that in Queensland and in New South Wales, where those workshops would be in person. But besides that initial week, which may differ for jurisdictions, the rest of it, no matter where you are, is online learning. So that really does help to cater for our crazy schedules, I would say, because that's how life feels these days. But also at a time that suits you when it comes to shaping your studies around your schedules, but being able to get started also as soon as possible with rolling intakes every month at the College of Law is something else that we hope helps you to be able to get to your destination faster. So talking about those different modes, we have the full-time and part-time. So when it comes to the full-time being 15 weeks, we will be quite frank with you and say that if you do have a job on the side, this may be a little chaotic. And we only say that because we want to equip you with the knowledge necessary to be able to make the decisions that are best for you. So the full-time option, although 15 weeks does, sound like a great amount of time to knock off the next stage of your journey, it's a big load. 30 to 35 hours, could even be a little bit more than that, if we're being honest. And yeah, it's intense, but again, it is obviously fun. It is obviously exciting, but I think it always helps to know the reality of it so that you are able to make a decision and a choice that works for you. So the full-time option is there. And I'm not saying that it's not doable by any means if you do have a job on the side, but again, it is a lot. But other than that, if you feel confident and you are in a position where you feel like full-time would suit you, you certainly have that. But if you are someone who might have a bit more of a busier schedule, and let's say you don't have around 8 free hours to dedicate a day, then you do have the part-time option that works for you. And that would be 30 weeks, 15 to 20 hours, again, could be a little bit more. But regardless of full-time or part-time, you have the week 1 of the 5 days of workshop learning, and then you have the rest, which is online learning as well. So you are able to start when you like. And again, with our rolling intakes every month, excuse me, you're able to have that flexibility to be able to start essentially when you want. And that, I think if you're someone who is looking to get admitted as soon as possible, that we indeed believe that this is a great benefit for you as well. As I mentioned before, support is everything. And especially when you're studying online, because sometimes it can feel like you're on your own. But we at the College of Law never want you to feel like that. And certainly, with the support that you have, it is very unlikely that you'll feel like that. So when you have your amazing lecturers like Lee here with me today, who give you that one-on-one support and the feedback and actually administer the content for you, you are talking about lecturers from, who are admitted in the profession, and people that have experience in a variety of ways. And it's special that at the college, there are so many lecturers that just come from all sorts of different walks of life. And no matter where you're looking to go to, you're always going to learn something from someone's journey, especially from the story journeys of our lecturers at the college. But let's say you are on a sounding board and you might need someone to help you out, or you might want to look to another professional who has also admitted, and you might want some more advice on things. You can always approach a mentor. So you have lecturers who to me are like mentors anyway, but then you also have dedicated mentors as well. There is further support for people that come to the College of Law. On top of that, we have career advisors or national career strategists, who I'll actually talk about a little bit more detail in a short second too, who are, valuable people and resources for us, and lovely people as well, like all our people at the college, who will certainly be able to give you further support when it comes to everything career related as well. And then we have College Connect. It just feels like it just goes on and on. You have College Connect. Again, it's all a testament to the support you're receiving at the college. So with College Connect, I'll actually want to give that a bit more time very soon to talk about. It is a platform, just in case you're not too sure. Which again provides more of a supportive environment, and the College Connect platform is actually exclusive to the College of Law, and you'll realize very soon why that is a huge benefit for you should you choose to come and do your PLT with us. So when it comes to payment, there is fee help available, which is always a big thing to mention for those that are Australian citizens and permanent residents. So it will be $11,000 heading into 2025, or $15,870 for those that are international. And we remember talking about the CEM module as well, which is that extra option for work experience. It does come at an additional cost of $1,690. And I believe it would actually be around $1,620 if you are in WA. But there is the extra option there essentially for you as well. And yeah, you pay exactly what is necessary for you so that you are able to go through your PLT and be equipped with the skills necessary. So yes, we are super humbled that grads and employers love us. And to be quite honest with you, we are, in our 50th year at the moment, and we know that our core purpose is to give back to the profession. Our core purpose revolves around students, and it revolves around those that are becoming lawyers. We have 30+ law firms who exclusively train their graduates with the PLT delivered programs for their cohorts. And that is is something that we're very proud of, given our partnership and our trust with many law firms across the country. We are currently 77% law students' choice as the leaders of the PLT program in Australia as well. So, being a non-profit as well, funds that come in from student enrollments only go back into the program to ensure that it is up to date, that it is current, and that it is optimized for those that are choosing to study with the College of Law. And as I mentioned before, being that we are in our 50th year, we are super, proud and also, very humbled by the fact that we are here and we're looking to achieve the impact that we have for another 50 and maybe even 50,000 years. So we're just looking to keep on going in that regard. So I mentioned before that we have further career support at the College of Law in the form of our career coaches or national career strategists, Susan Pincus and Ruth Barron, who are absolutely valuable resources for you. If you are looking to seek any extra career related support, if you're looking around advice on where you're going in terms of your career choices, if you're wanting to think more about your career branding, or seek, advice around job interviewing, for instance, there's a lot of different aspects to it, but you have people here that are dedicated solely to all of that for you as extra support. So you can actually book in consultations where you have access to 30-minute career consultations during your PLT. And as a way of saying to you that we don't just simply have you here for a PLT and boot you out when you're done, we look after you. We genuinely do look after you during your PLT, but when you're out there, you're not on your own. You still have us as support. So you actually have access to our career coaches 12 months after graduation. So once again, it involves many things: career planning, job searching, your personal branding, building your network and understanding how to best do that. Capitalizing on transferable skills, especially if you're someone like me who's changed careers completely, you want to understand what you have that can be leveraged when you're moving into a new profession. So if you're someone that might have a storied career behind you, and maybe a bit later in life, you're thinking, I want to study law, and you're at your PLT all of a sudden, you've got access to our national career strategists to be able to help you to better understand you and better understand your transferable skills. There's a lot of things. Finding your purpose is one of my favorite things, because I feel like to find your purpose, it really helps to speak with professionals. And our career strategists are no doubt professionals in this space. You also have access to career support resources. So, there are many free resources all around, finding a job, finding your purpose once again, negotiating your salary as well, which can always be a bit of a tough, little area as well. Sample CVs, we have sample cover letters, how to pivot into law, and try to reduce the possibility of a pay cut. There's a lot of different resources that you have access to as a member of our community, including webinars. We have free monthly webinars, to learn helpful tips on finding a legal role and planning your career. There's a lot of different topics as well, whereas it could be establishing an international career if you're looking to move overseas. If you're someone with a disability and you're kind of wondering how to navigate your legal career. If you're conscious about your social media profile, and that's completely fair enough, you want to understand how to best build that. There's a webinar in our toolkit around that, and these are kind of the ideas around webinars that will come out year by year. So there is just a plethora of resources that if you can access as a member of the College of Law community. And I want to bring up College Connect as well, which is again extra support, which is basically a LinkedIn for lawyers, if I can sort of put it that way. But really, what it is, it's a social community that's designed to further support you and your early career in law. So you're able to connect with other graduates here as well. You have access again to a large range of those career resources that we talked about before. There's events that are set up on the platform that you can attend. You have flash mentoring opportunities where you have the opportunity to talk with people that volunteer to be mentors. And then by the time you're ready to give back, and you're perhaps wanting to help other people that are coming up earlier in their stage than you are, you can become a mentor as well through the platform. So there's empowerment opportunities as well that are genuine and that really do help you to connect. We have our jobs board, as I mentioned before, where, it's just another form of support for you to help you feel more safe and secure, especially when it comes to finding work experience or any positions that you may potentially want to uptake after you've completed your PLT and your work experience. And as I mentioned before, sample CV, sample cover letters, and one other thing that's actually not mentioned, which I find maybe even just as important, is access to practice papers. And for those that are a bit unsure about what that is, essentially it's a how-to book for you to be able to understand exactly how to, complete certain tasks as a lawyer. And that's not just in one jurisdiction, that's across all jurisdictions. So again, we don't just simply boot you out of the college after you're done with us. You have access to this platform even after you're finished with us. And you have access to those practice papers, which, might I mention, I've been speaking with a lot of lawyers lately at recent conferences, and there are a few lawyers that come up and still use those practice papers and still have access to those to be able to just sort of remember some of those specific processes and tasks. Lee, would you be able to contribute and sort of mention a little bit about some of those features in the practice papers?
So the practice papers are just a little bit more than what you would think they are, really. What those practice papers are is they are an A to Z how to actually be a lawyer and how to actually do what you need to do to be the lawyer. And I'm talking specifics here. So you might be, as a first-year lawyer, say, given a file by your supervisor, and the supervisor says, look, hey, June, can you please draft me an affidavit? And you go, oh, okay, sure, I can. And you'll think, okay, I did one in PLT, which was great, but I can't remember how to do it again, and I need some advice. So in the practice papers will be a step-by-step, this is the type of document you need. This is where you can find that document, as in the precedent document. Now let's look at the content that you need for the affidavit. This is what you need to write in your first line, in your second line. This is how you need to craft the rest of the content. This is how you execute the document with your client. It really is a step-by-step guide on how to do a practical task. It could be, how do I contact the court in order to file consent orders? Or how do I draft consent orders? It gives you full-on examples of things that you won't be able to find on the internet or by searching, of real legal documents, and how to actually craft those documents for yourself practically if you need to. When I went through the PLT 20-something years ago in Sydney, and those practice papers that I came out with, and it was like 4 very thick volumes when I did it, were my saving grace when I moved to a law firm and didn't understand how to do something. First thing I would do was hit the practice papers and see what information was in there. And most of the time, it would tell me how to do it, and it would give me an example of how it's done properly.
Thank you, Lee. That's great insight. And, it really helps too, because these practice papers are actually updated every year as well. So they're updated. And once again, this is an exclusive and unique feature of your College of Law PLT experience as well. So you have some cute, nice and handy QR codes there. So I'll give a quick moment if anyone wanted to quickly access those. Of course, if you are viewing the recording, you'll be able to as well. But again, you have access to those career consultation appointments. You have access to plenty of resources and those monthly webinars as well. A huge thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. We are not finished just quite yet, as we may have some questions in the chat box. So we can definitely get to those now. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Cool. There we go. And we're more than happy for any questions to come through if anyone did have any questions. As we're still around 4 minutes from finishing, but we can always hang on a little bit further, so don't worry. If anyone had any further questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box now. It's a great chance to, while you have Lee, who again is a lecturer in the program, to be able to best help you there. Yep, lovely. We've got a question.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you. Yep. So is it compulsory to have a university degree to start PLT, or can you begin early?
You can begin slightly early. So the rules say, and this is the regulators' rules, not the college's rules, but the regulators say if you finished your Priestley 11 subjects and have done everything in your law degree other than 2 of your electives, you can get permission to start early. And it's an administrative process to get permission. So it's just a matter of asking and, providing evidence that you finished what they need to see. If you're granted permission to start early, then you can be finishing off your electives whilst you start doing PLT at the same time. We do have a number of students who do that because, again, they like to finish everything. But I assure you those students aren't working full-time as well as doing uni, as well as doing PLT. It'd just be too much.
Yeah, and I think more to that, Lee, you really want to enjoy your PLT experience. And I think it's a huge part of the PLT is actually enjoying it. So you don't want to load your plate too much so that you can actually be present and actually really give your best focus to it as well.
Absolutely. You want to get the most out of it you can, and you'll get the most out of it by picking the course that really suits the rest of your work-life balance.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Lee. We have another question. Thank you for your question. Can you get a loan for your PLT?
You can go through HELP, previously known as HECS, and do your PLT that way, assuming that you've still got money in your HECS bank or HELP bank in order to do it. So yeah, again, you can do it that way, but you need to apply.
Wonderful. Yep, we have another question. Are you only able to choose 2 electives, or can you choose more?
You are only allowed to choose 2 electives. You choose them right at the start of the course, but you do have the first week of your course. If you change your mind during skills week, you might be chatting to other people and decide that you want to try different electives at that point. You do have a week to change your mind once you've started the course, but only 2.
Cool, thank you. Another question rolled through. If I've completed 19 days at VLA and then over 150 days as a paralegal, will the college acknowledge 60 of these days, and then I will be required to complete 15 additional days, and in brackets, I'll do full time. I can jump in for that. If it's within, if those days are within 2 years before starting your PLT, you will be able to claim up to 60 of those days. So, and it won't matter if you've completed, 5 days a week of that, you'll be able to claim it. Just as a further note, though, for work experience, which I may not have mentioned, if you are on your full, so when you're completing the days that you need to complete during or after your PLT, you can only claim up to 2 days per week if you're in the full-time option. But if you're in the part-time study mode, you can claim up to 5 days. So that's just useful for anyone that is, thinking about how they're going to complete their days sort of during the coursework component. But if you are claiming those days before starting your PLT, you can claim up to 5 days in any week, as long as it's within those 2 years before starting. But once again, to answer your question, once you can, if it's within the 2 years, you can claim those 60 days, and then yes, you will need to complete those remaining 15 days during or after your coursework. So you've got a bit of time there, so don't fret, and really one general recommendation we have is if you have a position of some sort heading into your PLT, to keep it. And that's only if, again, you can manage the workload. But if you can manage that, then at least you prevent yourself from having to go through the stages of finding a position out there again. And then you can at least complete the rest of the days with the current position that you have anyway. Cool. Happy to give just 2 more minutes for any remaining questions. Lee, I have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
I'll have to put you on the spot here. What is one piece of advice that you would give for someone who is about to start their PLT journey?
I think my number one piece of advice that assists all my students, or that I try to tell people during these presentations, is, we've already touched on it, but you absolutely must sit back and genuinely consider your work-life balance before you choose which type of PLT course that you want to do. The PLT course should not be so stressful in your life due to having to balance your workload to such a degree that you don't have enough time. You can learn so much through the PLT course if you don't rush it and take that knowledge into your first job as a lawyer. And what that means is, when you get to your first job, you can hit the ground running and be confident in the process. Know that you know the basics, and that you understand how to find out the answers if you don't. So that's my number one tip, is understand your work-life balance and pick the right course for you. And honestly, if it comes down between finishing in 15 weeks or 30 weeks, you're at the start of your career, and 15 weeks is absolutely nothing in a difference for your full career going forward. So use the PLT opportunity as another learning experience and get the most you can out of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Great advice there for anyone looking to start their PLT. And I believe we can wrap it up there. There doesn't appear to be any more questions. So once again, a huge thank you to those that have attended or will attend by viewing our recordings. It's a pleasure to always talk everything PLT and to help you to answer your questions and to help equip you even further before starting such a fun and exciting and huge part of your journey. And, we certainly wish you all the best for that decision there as well. Thank you all once again. It's been our pleasure, and we'll see you at a future time.
See you later.